If you don't know us, I'm Lynn Cohen. This gal over here is Annette Reynolds.
And we are Team Impressa.
There you go.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that this session is being recorded. So if you have to pop out early, or if you know somebody else who's interested, we will share the link and people will be able to watch it.
Also, in terms of the ground rules for this session, we're going to mute everyone and ask that you save your questions. It's not a long presentation, 20 to 30 minutes tops, and pop your questions into the chat bar so that you don't lose your train of thought, and we will deal with all of them. We will stay as long as it takes to get all of your questions answered.
That sounds good. Lynn, why don't you introduce our presenters?
Okay, so today we've taken a sort of left-hand turn from the normal trainings that we offer you regularly. And I think it's specifically because we all need to identify new ways to make a living in this crazy world. And so we have been very, very lucky to meet two guys who have a proven formula for teaching us how to successfully work with flippers and rehabbers. Eric Potter and Mark Hill are the owners of massprivatelending.com. They have many years of experience, decades
Are they that old?
Not as old as we are. They have decades of experience in working in this area. Eric is a real estate attorney extraordinaire. He has worked with large and small rehabbing projects. Mark Hill comes with a ton of experience. He's helped many rehabbers across the Eastern Seaboard, frankly, over hundreds of them. And I'm going to stop talking very shortly and turn the meeting over to them. Any questions before we do? Great. So Mark, Eric, say hello and let's get this thing going.
Folks, first of all, thanks for the time. Thanks for the attention. We have about 16 slides, that's all. So we're going to be quick about this. I'm a member of the ADHD club. So if anybody else is out there, that proud club, but we'll keep moving on this. So we're about 16 slides and we'll be quick. I'm going to just pop right into it. We're going to talk about rehabbing, as I call it. Some people call it a number of different things, and private lending. They run somewhat hand in hand. And I'm going to sort of hit the first slide, if I may. And basically, what we're looking at is the following: is rehabbing. A lot of people know from HGTV, things like that. Yes, it's entertaining. Some people think that it's a cute business to a degree. It's a huge business. It's a national infrastructure business. Just like our power grid is bad, our highways are bad, our water system, the American housing market, for the most part, its stock is old. It's especially old here in the Northeast, also in the Midwest. But to a large degree, the commission dollars here that can be generated are huge. So it's not just a little business where you see people doing additions and things like that. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And I do think that everyone who is in this industry needs to know about it and needs to focus on it. So I'm going to really go into a couple of things that I think we can do to make money in 2024, and then also going on for probably the entire decade. The numbers are big, and I'm a big demographics guy. I don't think you have to be phenomenally good at something to do well, just get the demographics right. And that's sort of the theme of this. So again, it's a huge play. It's national, state to state, but I would say the majority of the rehabs that need to be done are in the oldest part of the country, which is the Northeast, Massachusetts, Chicago, places like that. So it's right in our wheelhouse from that standpoint. So basically, Eric has, and I have been in the private lending space for a dozen years, something like that. He came from the real estate side of law, and I come from a Wall Street background, trading many things. So I look upon housing here as a trading game, right? Trading games can make good volume money. And this is something I really want to talk a little bit about. So private hard money lending is asset-backed lending. In our world, it's a house, it's a commercial building, it's a multifamily, or it's raw land. Basically, we lend money to rehabbers as long as we have some form of collateral. We're really bankers to the rehabbers. People will often say, why don't they just go to a bank and have the process? We sometimes will put out money within 4 or 5, 6 days. We'd like to have a little bit more time, but often rehabbers are finding things at auctions or foreclosures. So it's a foot race. So as I say down there, rehabbers are in a foot race to secure a property, and we keep them running. We're very, very quick. Yes, our rates are higher, but we are liquidity providers. More than anything else, you could call private hard money lending liquidity providers. We get the grease going to get the projects moving. So in this slide here, Eric and I wanted to really look at demographics and determine how we make money in 2024, I think to 2030, if not longer. Look, 2023 is tough. All right, I've traded for 30 years. I'd never seen the Fed do what they did. It was almost hostile. How do you determine your life? How do you make money? How do you determine if you're going to move from one house to another when the rates are just moving at such a rapid rate? So 2023 is behind us. I hope you all had a pretty good year or a good year, but I am, for one, as a lender, glad that it's behind us, yes. I think for sure. So basically, I'm looking at it this way. You had COVID for almost 4 years ago. COVID started, I think, in January, February here in Boston. We all remember it well. So you had COVID, and then you've got post-COVID. People basically bunkered down in their homes. The older folks, if you want to call them elderly, senior citizens, whatever the term may be, they haven't moved. They haven't moved in 4 years. And they're the baby boomers. And they turn 80, I think, next year. There are 70 million baby boomers. And at some point, they're going to come out of their homes, primarily for safety reasons, for safety, aging reasons, whatever it may be. We have the 55 plus community is booming, not necessarily in Florida anymore, but all around us. That's a good option. Assisted living, and of course, memory care, is a reality. But I do think that it's sort of game on, folks, for this pass off, as I call it, down there at the bottom. 70 million boomers. They're going to start coming out of these homes. I can speak personally, having done that with my mother and my in-laws recently. Those staircases that you folks have, and I'm not from Massachusetts, your staircases are severe.
And that also allows for there to be there also allows an opening for rehabbers to come in there, because a lot of the houses are going to be passed off are going to be older. They're going to need some work to be done. And when the inventory goes up again, it's also going to create a little bit of a market where the rehabbers are going to have the space to come in, improve that house, and then sell it to a buyer that's looking for turnkey.
Yeah, I think the buyer, and it leads to this slide, which is the pass off. It's local. I call it irrelevant housing. I really think that homes that are owned by older folks are irrelevant. I mean, I call it the pink tiles. I think Annette calls it shag carpeting. But all this stuff has to be done over. It's not because it's bad. Some of these houses are immaculate. They're beautifully maintained. It's just not what the buyers want. And this becomes a local, this really, I think, where we dig in, where it becomes a local activity. Yes, it's on a national basis. These big national home builders have come in to try to do rehabbing. They can't. It's a local business, folks. They can't come in. They try to come in. It doesn't work. So every one of you who works a local section of maybe 50 miles, this is your playground. It's your sandbox. It's whatever you really want to call it. But rehabbing is local, and that's your edge. So I think that this 70 million to 70 million, I don't know how long that goes on for, right? It'll go on for a decade or something like that, but it should keep us busy. And then I'll get on to sort of the volume here. Look, rehabbers, they're traders. Okay, they're traders of houses. That's what they do. What I think Eric is determined more so is the rehabbers are tradesmen. They used to not be. The tradesmen worked for the investors or whatever it may be, people that did it on the side or did it full time. But the tradesmen have become very sophisticated, very savvy, where they've sort of stepped in. And that's a really good thing for the brokers, in my opinion, because a rehabber may do 3 to 10 projects a year. As I have up there, homeowners have 13.2 years stay in each home. Who would you rather deal with? People that do, call it 5 transactions a year, or one that does every 13 years? The math is really, really simple from that standpoint. Is the rehabbers have to buy, sell, to make their livelihoods. That's what they do. So these guys are out there, and women, plenty of good women out there doing this. They're traders, and you get paid by commission, by transaction.
And that's where I think we come into the space as well, because in order to be these house traders, they need to have financing. They need to be able to move quickly. And the private hard money lending space allows them to do so. And that's where we're a tool for the brokers as well, because when an opportunity presents itself to a rehabber, you can put them in touch with someone like us, who's going to allow the transaction to happen at the time, frame that's necessary, and without having to go to a conventional bank.
Well, and if I can interject for a minute, each of the properties a rehabber buys means that we have 2 sales per transaction. We sell them the property and we sell the property for them. So if they do 3 a year, that's 6 transactions for us. That's really where the power is in this discussion.
Yeah, it's a great multiplier effect. Having been years on Wall Street, brokerage houses that deal with hedge funds that trade all day long, they do very, very well. Ones that are more value investors, where people buy a stock and keep it for 10 years, that model doesn't grow. You really need volume, and I think Lynn and Annette always say you go where the volume is, or, if Gretzky says you go where the puck is going to be. Yeah, that's kind of the mentality. I'm going to move on because I promised you I would be quick. Look, the tradesmen are very, very good. They're extremely good engineers. They're really, really good at building their product. But I think that the nuance here for the real estate broker is you have to do this for them. The rehabber does a project. He needs to sell that project. And the broker's job is to determine what is the largest pool of buyers. I don't care what it looks like. Whatever people want, it's like I can make 20 flavors of ice cream. They want vanilla ice cream, give them vanilla ice cream. So what I have here in this first is very critical. This first point here is that you have to help them de-risk their activities. They're going to do a project. And the question is what is the largest pool? They did a great job of something, and guess what? Nobody wants this. Fabulous. So would you rather be right, or do you want to make money? And that's kind of the point here. You must identify, make it easy for them. That is a tremendous issue here, this de-risking of their activities. And it de-risks for the lender, it de-risks for the broker, everyone. And I'll get into a three-pronged approach in a moment. But what does the town want? What does the area want? Do they want to do condo conversions? Do they need more apartments, additional bedrooms, desired cultural characteristics? We live in a world here that luckily is a melting pot. We identify what our buyers want. That's extremely important. Yeah. Home offices, little example. I have a friend who's got a great 3-bedroom that he's rehabbed, spectacular job in New Jersey, wonderful town. It should go in a week. It's on the market now 2 months later because they want 4 bedrooms. They want 3 bedrooms, and they want the option of moving out of the city to have the home office. So basically you can deliver a product that's not necessarily as good as it could be, but the demand is there. So this is really, really critical. Tell them what the market wants. And I believe they do not know. And I don't think that they're aware of it. And I think a lot of it's because the savvier investor has kind of left this market to a degree. Look, this is a hard business. And the tradesmen are good at it, right? And they're tough.
And I think that I haven't had, a matter of fact, just, out of all of our borrowers, I don't believe I've had a good borrower that I've done multiple deals with that doesn't have a very, very strong relationship with their real estate broker. The reason for that is not only because the broker can give them, opportunities to get deals that come on the market very quickly, but these rehabbers are working around the clock. They don't have the time, bandwidth, or resources to do the research necessary to find the next opportunity. And that's why there's so much value that can be offered on your end.
Okay, so basically, what are you looking for, right? To a degree, years ago, people would get all the bombed out stuff that's around town that's been empty for 4 or 5 years. Those are gone. Those days are gone. Maybe you'll find a couple here and there. It is amazing, though, the number of deals that are found on MLS is extraordinarily high. I don't know if I totally trust the data on that, but a lot of what I read said that the MLS has a lot of stuff. And I think, just to tell you, if you can go to YouTube and just do that, rehabbers with brokers, things like that, you will see that some of that come up. But I think that basically a good rehab is you're effectively all in your construction and your acquisition cost for 75% of the after repair value, whatever it may be. I mean, let's use round numbers: $750,000 for the land and the closings and the construction, and it goes out the door at $1 million. That's kind of what you're looking for. And I know the math can be funky to a degree. We have a slide. We'll get into that a little bit, but let's just try to stay light here. But it's really about 75%, and then the 25% is most of the profits, without getting too many one-liners in here right now. And the question really is we go back to the de-risking. Yeah, people want center hole colonials, capes, things like that. It can be difficult when you get into these contemporaries of the 60s and 70s. I kind of call them architectural experiments. I think these are funky things that came out of the 60s for one reason or another. We can probably guess. But you may not find that many buyers. You people know. You might turn around and say to me, hey, Mark, you're dead wrong. In the last 6 months, the 28-year-old buyers, they want these cool contemporaries. Give them what they want, okay? We don't make the rules, folks. We just try to identify the trends and then fill the demand. I think that one thing I've been surprised in the last few years is that a lot of folks that have come in from abroad, they're not afraid of houses that have a lot of congestion or non-controversial commercialization. I'm really surprised. It seems like America's gone from everybody wanting to be on a cul-de-sac to 2-lane roads, don't care, noise, don't really care. So I've been wrong at times to say pass on a loan. I just don't like it. I drive around, it's too much going on. So just be aware of, again, what people like. It's your ear to the ground, it's local business. I think also that matters a lot is economics and social diversity. I'm a real big believer in going to towns that have great social diversity. I really think it's just open culture, right? Why? Again, it brings in the most number of buyers.
Yeah, it brings in, it's a much larger buyer pool.
Yeah, it just is. So, and that may be a social issue that you can go on and on. I don't care. Okay. I just look upon it as being people that are socially welcome will come to places, and places that have that mentality are expanding and their prices are going up. So I really, really think that that's very, very important. And also, here's another one, folks. I mean, Eric's kind of got one. I don't know where it stands right now. People can kind of find houses that just need a little bit of work that can pop. You get a couple of walls that come down. You get a much more spacious view of the home. Small dollars, sometimes people can nail it. It's just, hey, this is a great house, great neighborhood, all that may be. And the configuration inside the house is really, really detrimental to the value. So that's a standpoint, which is you can walk into a house and say, this is wrong, but there's a lot of value here. So the small dollars where they may be putting in, I don't know, $30,000 or $40,000 to the rehab. I would say most rehabs, we run along about $120,000 now, something like that. We don't have to go into costs have gone up, labor's gone up. That's been a different issue. That's been a struggle of 2023 and 2022. But I think that some of this stuff's under your nose, and it's certainly on MLS. One thing I do notice, stuff that sits on MLS a long time, people forget it. And then sellers basically may move away and say, they'll pop some bid that, God, I never knew they'd sell it there. If they've been on for a long time, people have left the house, you can throw these bids in. It happens at some point, they give up, or they're just on to the next thing in their life. So just going back to the value add, I kind of look at some of this quirky stuff, having traded for years. I'm always looking for an edge with data. Socioeconomic trends we were talking about a little bit, that's real important. I look for rising math SAT scores. I believe in the Northeast, and I'm from New York, I'm not from Massachusetts. You're driven here by engineers, I don't know, be it software, hardware, whatever it is. When I see math SAT scores going up, that's telling me that engineers are moving in. Often is the case, the husband and wife are both engineers. So you've got two incomes there with a lot of buying power. So rising math SAT scores, yeah, you can just, that's all on the net. You can find that stuff. AP programs, big deal also. The advanced placements, engineers love that. So I kind of try to figure out who has the money. That's the logic. Every 20 years, the money goes from, I don't know, finance to engineering to software, whatever it is, to entertainment. But basically, as I believe the drivers of the New England economy are engineers, whatever type of engineer that they may be. And I think that the rising math SAT scores and AP programs, they lift the prices of the towns where people say, gee, that house could never sell for 600,000. Rehabbed, it sold for 700,000. I think a lot of times the local people don't understand the price appreciation that can go on because it's never gone on. So I do look for that engineer that's moving into the different towns. You know, if you know building codes and guidelines and houses that are you know coming to the market that probably won't sell that well on the market, kind of quirky stuff. It's out there. I mean, I've gone through some neighborhoods where it looks like nothing needed to be rehabbed on that street. They are all 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, let's say, but they had the plots where they could go up. And what did people want? They wanted 4 bedrooms. And these houses that sold for 400,000 were now selling for 700,000. And the locals look at it and say, never going to happen. It's always the outsider. So when you're looking at something, even if you know it well, try to look at it as almost as if you're looking at it for the first time. So let me move on quickly to state of my promise. Yeah, I think here basically you find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, what do they want? They want 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath. Can you go up? Yeah, you can go up, but basically I've got a house here where that can be done. You've seen enough houses where you know what can be done. So as long as these plot ratios can be done, often they can go up, they can go back, whatever it is. But basically determining we need 4 bedrooms and not a beautiful 3-bedroom that right now it's nice, but I'm not moving out of the city for that space. I need more. And I see more and more of that. Beautifully done jobs, just not matching it to demand. So, and that's a broker's situation. The tradesman's never going to know, never ever going to know. So that's mitigating that risk again, is construct something that they will buy, not something that they'll say, you know what, well done, but not for us.
That goes in both directions as well, right? You can overbuild and build a 5-bed when you only need 4 beds in the area, or that it can go both ways, and you have to just be very aware of what that end buyer is going to be. I think that's one of the most important under due diligence items you can put down, because if you don't have that nailed, that's going to create a lot of problems in the back end when you start carrying the debts and all the other things related to it, if it has to sit too long.
Yeah, I mean, again, you go back to the vanilla ice cream. Give them what they want. If they don't want 4 flavored ice cream, they want just do that. And I think that it don't have to make it that difficult. I will say this, folks: if you're going to deal with rehabbers, understand what they're looking for. Right? There's nothing worse than when a broker comes into a rehabber and starts pitching them on things that they don't want to do. The first question is what is your focus? Section 8, multifamily, single family, mixed use, whatever it may be. Because otherwise they'll just not take your call. If you know their wheelhouse, they'll pick you up. What do you have? They may not be, that nice about it, but they're going to pick your call up. And that's really, really important. Otherwise, you haven't done the work or given them the respect to say, what do you do for a living? So that's the number one thing after you say hello and you identify yourself. That's what I've found through the years. And the other thing is this: you guys walk through structures all the time. It's a spatial town. You look at something and say, what can it be? A lot of the rehabbers don't do that. They're very good at following the plans and doing the construction. So what you may know in your mind is being, hey, everybody knows that. Not the case. It's not the case. So if you see a layout that can work better, you have to push it on them and say, look, you've got to come see a house. And they show up and they say, there's nothing to do here. And then you walk them through it and show that the value that can be created. That's really, really big. And I think a lot of brokers think everybody knows that. Not a chance. Not a chance. You probably know a lot more than you think you know when it comes from that. And then basically, what are you doing there? You're giving consultation. You're doing consulting. And the great thing is they're getting consulting for free because as Lynn said, brokerage has to be paid. So if I feel that I've got a consultant, I can't pay them enough, meaning I'm just so happy, let's do the next deal. So you're almost becoming part of their team, and it's an integral part of it. So I really, really do believe that you're a consultant. And if you have 2 or 3 of these rehabbers a year, just think about how much easier that is to your baseline of income, knowing that they have to do deals to make money, which is going to help you. It really comes down to, it's essential. It's essential. And it's a trading world. Remember, these people are trading houses and you're brokers for traders, and that's a nice business. So you say, Mark, great, where are these people? You can go to sheriff's auctions. I think they're interesting. I go to them from time to time. They're not what they used to be, but a lot of folks are hanging around there. You can introduce yourselves. You got to really go up to these people, give them your card, and have done your work and grab their attention, get their cards, and try to connect with them. Sheriff's auctions are good. Builders Associations meeting. I have 249,000 miles on my car. I go. Okay, I go. I'm going to try to go less as time goes on. It's a lot, but the Builders Associations are out there. Eastern Mass, Western Mass, Rhode Island, Providence. I've been up in New Hampshire the last 2 months. I believe with rising rates, companies have to go to areas where taxes are lower. So as interest rates have gone up, we are seeing more activity. I drive around southern New Hampshire and I can feel it. I see the roads being widened and I just see good things. I lived in Texas for many years, from 2000 on for about 10 years, and Texas exploded. I could just see it. It smells, it looks like Texas. So I go to these meetings. I meet people. I do have a nice time. I do like builders. I think that they're just, I don't know, they're out there every day on their own. I do like them. Bank officers, short sellers to a degree. There's less short sales than there used to be, but bank officers know the folks. All right, there is conversation that goes on there. Building supply outlets. I think that even Home Depot, the Pro Desk, keeps lists of rehabbers and builders, things like that, that you can go to. Lumber yards, I know certainly do. They use it for a way to promote their customers. And then you drive by sites. I'm a big believer, like I see a rehab going on, I'll stop. So you're driving in your cars quite a lot, not maybe as much as we used to, but you see something going on, you go up there and you introduce yourself and try to give them value added in a 5-minute conversation. Why they need you as a consultant, not why they need you as a broker. I mean, I'm a big believer in education, and which we're trying to do here, which creates a sort of a value add. And then your brokerage network, it's big, okay? You guys are all on this call because you're committed to the business. You peel the onion. You just keep looking and looking and looking, and that's what Eric and I do. We're doing the same thing, right? We're always looking for new people to do business. So I think that's where you sort of find them. They're more under your nose than you think. Okay, and I'll really getting towards the end here. It's the 3-legged stool. You folks should work with 1 or 2 private lenders, no more. You want to create relationships that get really, really good. If you have 5 or 6 or 7 lenders, the relationships never get deep enough, I believe. Right, Eric?
And more important, with 1 or 2 lenders you're going to be working with, you're going to have, like Mark said, a relationship that you develop where you're going to know if the lender is going to do the deal or not, because you're going to know what the lending parameters are. You're going to have done a couple deals with them, know what the lender's due diligence and underwriting process is, and then you're going to be able to kind of move more quickly. A lot of times when these acquisitions are available to rehabbers, they have to move fast. And if you're working or shopping this around 5, 6 different lenders, it's going to slow things down too much and kind of get in the way of the deal. So that's where, I think there's an advantage in creating a close network or circle that you work with.
And also, look, we're liquidity providers, as I said earlier in the presentation. You will provide liquidity when you have less questions. When you're dealing with repeat borrowers, that's really, really key. It really moves it fast. So it's about speed. Rehabbing in the early stages is about the identification of the project, identification of the money. So if you have a couple, 1 or 2 or 3 may be too many, because it will slow down that process of Eric and I sitting here saying, okay, so who is this borrower? Well, we're doing our work. Well, that's wasted time. So that's why we do love the consistent repeat rehabber. So that's big from our standpoint. But we really have a three-legged stool here. We have the rehabber who's got to do the project. You want to do the consultation and get the brokerage and the hard lending community, as it's called, or the private lending community, it's called. That's the real three-legged stool that I believe that if you could create that, that will basically give you an income over a course of 12 months that you feel you can rely on. Because, you know, as we know, buyers have become fickle in the last 6 weeks. Sellers are always fickle the last couple of years. So I just like the fact that we're dealing with grinders that need your expertise.
And grinders as well that aren't going to go away once you develop a relationship with a person that's buying a house. Like Mark said, they're going to be in that house for a number of years. A rehabber is going to do those 5 to 10 deals a year, but again, they're going to do it next year and the year after that. They may not do it for 20 years, but they're going to do it for 3 to 5 years, maybe short term longer than that. So you're not having to go out and get a new client base every year. Every year it's going to build on the one that you got from the last year.
And I think, look, I go to a lot of rehab meetings from, here to Delaware, Allentown, Pennsylvania, through the years. And there's really not many brokers there. I don't understand why the rehab community and the brokers just don't seem to intertwine. And I would say the couple that I know who've done it very well, more so in New Jersey, they do very little brokerage. They kind of became rehabbers themselves at some point and just moved on. So, it's interesting. I don't know why the two don't spend more time together, the rehabber and the broker, but I don't see that through the years. Eric, you want to do the math?
Sure. Yes. So it's going to be something that works on nearly every deal. I think it helps when you're identifying what a potential project's going to be for a rehabber. When you're going to buy a property, basically the lender's going to lend around 70 to 80% of the as completed value on that transaction. So if you have an acquisition cost on a property of $400,000 and a cost of construction of $100,000, we have about $510,000 in order to buy that property. We're going to require that the rehabber put down 10 to 15% at acquisition. We want them to have skin in the game. We do not fund 100% of the transaction. We'll fund 100% of the rehab cost, which is pretty important. So we would fund 100% of that cost of construction, but we do want the borrower to have skin in the game. That keeps them committed to finishing the project, because we are not a loan-to-own platform. We want the rehabbers to be successful. And you'll find when someone has money in the game, they're going to be more committed and dedicated to getting the project done and making it a successful one. We do rely on you guys to determine what the as completed value is going to be. We will do our own due diligence and underwriting on these, but really we want to make sure that we have a CMA from a local broker or realtor to make sure that when this property gets finished and goes from a 3-bed to a 4-bed, or a 4-bed to a 5, or to a townhouse, from a multi to townhomes, we want to make sure that that finished property is going to not exceed 70 to 75% of the total loan amount. So a good way and a simple way to do this is you look at the property costs, acquisition costs. In this case, it's $400,000. You can expect that we will lend 85 to 90% on the acquisition, so long as the as completed loan to value ratio doesn't really exceed 75%. Pretty quick equations that can be made. That's going to almost guarantee that it's going to be a loan that we're going to take a very close look at. We are not credit-based lenders. We're equity-based lenders. We want to make sure that the collateral that we're getting as a mortgage on the property is going to be sufficient to cover the principal that we're putting out there. So it's different than a conventional lender that's going through a very long and belabored underwriting process. Ours is pared down to the property that we're getting for the most part. with, you know, some other small due diligence items that we take into play. But if everything checks out with the property itself and the borrower seems qualified to be able to do the rehab, it's going to be almost certain that we're going to be able to move forward on that. Give this back to you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to sort of wrap up here, at least in terms of the presentation. Again, Eric has been an attorney for a couple of decades in real estate, which is I think a really, really good edge for people that are also private lenders. That's what attracted me to meeting Eric about 10 years ago. And again, as I said, I've traded for big hedge funds and on Wall Street for decades. So I've seen a fair amount. So I think we're pretty seasoned guys from the standpoint. Again, demographics really drive a lot of the world right now. You don't have to be perfect if you have the demographics behind you. The wind behind your back is always a good thing. I think that you all know more than you think you do. And I think that the rehabbers, to a degree, this new generation really need you, because they've been so construction oriented. We here at Mass Private Lending, we're starting to ramp up into 2024. Eric has been a full-time attorney and also lending. So the bandwidth of us working together and going out and finding more institutional money, and also private individuals that will add to our capital base as we go along in 2024. But I think as you're looking at this new year, we're looking to grow to our capital base more so. And I would say from 2024, look, rates will come down a little bit, folks. Okay, I think that I watch futures on bonds, and it looks like it's a 99% chance of a rate cut by, say, June of next year. Maybe we will see. But I think the thing that will help us more in the brokerage community is the rate of change of the interest rates going up so fast was a bit shocking. Yeah. The cash market's been there, and people just pull back. We've been involved in commercial projects here that have all been canceled because you can't figure out where interest rates are going to be. I think the good thing about 2024 is people will realize, yes, rates are going to get higher. People all get used to things. That's number one. We will not have a rate of change that's so strong. And look, if mortgages go down to, say, 6.5, well, it looks a whole lot better than that scary time up at 8. People will get accustomed to it. They'll move on. I've been in markets for 30 years. It's like this will never work. It does. People get used to it. The younger generation of the 28-year-olds, I mean, when I came out of college, I think the rates were 17 or 18%, and it still survived. People bought houses. So I'm feeling good about at least we're going to neutralize in 2024. I really do believe that the demographics of the older folks selling their homes, they must be rehabbed. That irrelevant housing, I think, is huge into the 28 to 32. It's just look at it. It's a pass off. It's a big trade of 70 million that probably go on long after we're out of this business. So again, Eric and I will be out there trying to build this business up in 2024 with institutional money. So we're around if anybody has questions, et cetera, at some point. And if you have any questions now, I guess Lynn and Annette, are we okay to take questions if there are any?
We are, and I've collected a couple from the chat, and you certainly can unmute yourself to add to them. And I made notes of them. First is a personal observation, and frankly, a shameless plug for you guys. Mark, I've known you quite a while now. I have worked with you on evaluating projects, and my experience with you is that you are an incredible hands-on lender, much more so than most hard money lenders, to be honest with you. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that approach, because I think it helps us as agents learn a tremendous amount. And it's one of the aspects of working with you that I most appreciate. And that's just my plug for you guys. I think it's well earned. There was a question in the chat bar from Boris, who is a professor at Northeastern and unfortunately had to go teach a class. He said, what about professionals in biotech? Aren't they as important as the engineers?
Well, I call them biotech engineers.
Okay. Because biotech is such a big part of our local
Yeah,
community.
oh, yeah, I mean, totally, I mean, we did have a software firm years ago after we stopped trading. And you've got mechanical engineers, you've got electrical engineers, you've got software, you got a bunch. So I do kind of group it in, whatever it may be, that engineers are a type of mentality that the economy can't get enough of. So yeah, he's right. And the funny thing is the biotech industry, it's really been down and out for a couple of years. If you look at the indexes, it's COVID really, really hurt the ability for people to work together in offices. And a lot of projects, private equity pulled back, they didn't like it. So I think once you can get biotech kind of on the move again, and people think that will happen probably in 12 months, it's not going to be tomorrow, that biotech, once it really starts to boom, I'll tell you, that's another big leg up for Boston, because it's been doing amazingly well with its primary industry kind of in the tank the last year or two.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's right.
The point again from Boris is that he sees that his best ability to consult is that rehabbers tend, and I certainly concur with this, to want to build at a luxury level that may or may not be the appropriate way to rehab in certain communities, and that we can help advise them on the level of their finishes, on the quality of their cabinets in the kitchen, for example, that could save them a lot of money and be just right for the community they're working in. If you're working in West Bridgewater, you don't want top of the line cabinets that drive your costs up, for example. But if you're working in Wellesley, well, that's another story. So that was his closing thought as he left, and I thought it was worth sharing.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So how do you really determine what is preferable in which areas?
Well, I would start with the areas that I know best, and I can only speak to that, and do a very deep analysis of homes that have been rehabbed, look at their before price and their selling price, and then see if you can match. I mean, you don't have to recreate the wheel. See if you can look at the type of home that has been successfully rehabbed. And Kelly, I know your experience with the rehabber was not great, but his end product
Well, he was an ass.
Yeah, he was, but we won't go there. But the end product certainly met all of these criteria. He bought for $6 million in Natick and sold for $1 million. And he probably put in a couple hundred because the house was a hot mess. So, but it still made him at least a couple hundred on the way out the door. Not a bad take for 6 months of work.
Just to get into that a little bit, because a couple of our examples have had these large profit margins here. A lot of the rehabbers, when you're looking at it to identify a property, you're not looking to necessarily make the rehab or 6 figures. So some of these rehabbers that are locally based, if they can make $50,000 in 3 to 4 months, they're going to take that. They're not looking to hit a home run and make $250,000, because you got to remember, these guys are doing this, for a living. So they're working every day at different properties. If they can do that on top of the other jobs that they have, they're going to have a pretty good year when you put 3 to 4 of these together in a row. So that's just an important thing. You don't have to look for the absolute home run. You can look for singles and doubles for rehabbers, and they're going to love that, because it's not going to be it's going to be a cumulative win for them.
Well, and the lower end ones that require less, I mean, the turnover is faster, and
Yep,
that's a
Exactly.
The other thing, Jill, is right now we're working with 2 rehabbers, and they have very different geographic areas that they would like to work in. And so my job, Annette's job, is to make ourselves experts and study those markets and bring them hard examples right out of MLS of, if you buy this, the odds are you could sell it rehabbed, perhaps expanded for this. And we're all capable of that kind of analysis. The numbers are right in MLS. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We just have to do the homework. And to be honest with you, our how do I put this? We've gotten to be very lazy in brokerage, because if you had a buyer, the only thing you could tell them was go higher, go higher, go higher. And if you had a listing and you got 7 offers, your big challenge was in picking one that would stick.
Yeah, well, so from my standpoint, and you know, I've been in the business 3 years, so I came in during COVID.
Yeah, but
So
your 3 years is worth 30, my friend. I know you well.
well, thank you. But from my perspective, I haven't been through I've only been through that time where it's been, it's not lazy. It's just I haven't been through it.
Well, you
what I
need
mean?
to learn a new skill set. I mean, I read a report recently that said 70% of all brokers working today,
Agents.
all agents working today, have never, ever worked in a strong buyer's market.
Yeah, well, I know I haven't.
That's
Yeah.
alarming to me. Okay, so you need to become students of this market. This is my 4th shift. It doesn't frighten me anymore. I just know I have to adjust my talking points and adjust my approach and go back to the basics that you learned about evaluating property.
And
That's
can you do a class on that for us who haven't been through it?
Sure, that'll be our next presentation. How's
Now,
that?
Mark and Eric, I do have a question for you. What about aspiring rehabbers? How do you work with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly, I mean, oftentimes a lot of the people that come to us are aspiring rehabbers. I think the calculus there is going to not be tremendously different. In a case where it's the first deal in aspiring rehab, you're probably going to be requiring about 25% down just to make sure we have a little bit more skin in the game on a transaction like that. We're also going to want to do a little bit more of meet the borrower, see what the game plan is here, really take a closer look at the construction holdback. Is it the amount of money for rehab? Is it very close to what we believe it should be? How do they, just ask more questions, figure out a little bit more. Do they have that really tight game plan in, not only for doing the rehab itself with regards to relationships they have with contractors or they may need to get, but really what their exit strategy is going to be. Are they, what's the timeline here? We'd prefer to be a little bit more aggressive. Are they going to be able to get out of this, and have they identified their end buyer? So we're going to take even a finer comb to review everything that first time rehabber is going to be doing, but it's still going to be based upon the collateral itself, so long as everything checks out. We also, on all of our borrowers, we want to make sure that they can service the debt as well. I say it's not credit based, but if someone is coming into it that's not doing the rehab themselves, are they employed? Do they have the money to service this debt on a monthly basis until they're able to sell that property?
Yeah, so the reason for asking is my whole reason for getting my real estate license is because I wanted to do investing. And then I fell in love with being a realtor. So I still haven't invested, but it's still in the back of my mind.
Jill, I think one thing, you always look at what the market's like. If you find people who are newbies, we call them newbies, right? That's what they are. Sometimes you can work with them to a degree. You can sort of do an equity type of deal, but we won't get into that too much. It's just how much you want to be at the project. But I do think that the one issue is, how is their labor? Do they have access to labor? Labor has been a problem here in this country, maybe not so much here. Certainly in the mid-Atlantic, it's been brutal, not in the South. But how is your labor? Is it consistent? What I see out there now is, because there have been labor shortages, a lot of houses that should have been done in the spring haven't been done yet, or they are now, and they're hitting the market with these rates now and not 9 months ago. I've got a couple of those, okay? They keep me up at night. Sure, they keep me up at night. But basically that project has to be worked on. Anytime you're going to see a rehabber and you just walk up, is there activity going on there? Are they on there? Are they just doing this thing? Or is there one guy kind of piddling along? Run, okay? Run. And you get a sense of that. You like to see people all over that house. So labor's the issue. Yeah, we know that the price of lumbers goes up and down. It does to a degree, and that will be what it'll be. Garage doors, you couldn't find garage doors 12 months ago, 18 months ago, you couldn't get COs because of that. And they had to, some of the building departments had to work well. So just labor is the big deal, okay? That's the biggest risk to me, and I think Eric probably also from that standpoint, we agree on most things. If that
But,
helps.
but
Yeah,
also,
thank you.
but also, Jill, having worked with a number of hard money lenders, they're very experienced in construction. Maybe they don't do it themselves, but they understand all the ins and outs, and they can provide a tremendous amount of guidance. They
Right.
become, I think in many respects, they're a tighter partner than your regular mortgage lender. They're really involved in the projects.
Right, and to your point earlier, there are hard money lenders out there who are loan to own, like they want to see you fail. But I know that there are some out there like Mark and Eric that, you know, they want to see you succeed, because when you make money, they make money, and they make money more often when you make money. So,
Exactly.
Jill, not to interrupt you, but the loan to own, I think, is a generational thing. I think that's going away. I think that the private lending business has become more sophisticated with younger people who want to do as much business as they can. That's good business. The loan to own business is a model that I think is luckily antiquated, but I hear you, okay? And
yeah, I mean, there's still those out there, so you just got to be careful.
Yep. Amen
As
to
with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that the loan to own model is. I worked for 3 years for a direct private lender company very similar to Mark and Eric's Mass Private Lending, and the last thing we wanted to do was own one of these properties because it was a national platform, and you know, I closed loans in Utah, Montana. I don't want to own that property in Utah or Montana. I want to remain a lender. So I think the industry has evolved to you know, better underwriting, better more of a focus on the quality and experience of the borrower, the quality and value of the asset, the asset in question, and also market knowledge. My experience with borrowers is that they tended to fixate on like half a point on the loan fee or 25 basis points on the rate. And I would pull up our return on investment model and show them how, well, the difference in loan fee or the rate won't create an unprofitable project. But if you miss by 5% on your construction cost budget, it's 5% higher, let's say, and you overstate your as repaired value by 5%, guess what? You've got an unprofitable project. And
Right.
that would usually end the fixation on, you know, half a point in the loan fee or the interest rate. So I mean, my advice to agents is you know, be ready to work with your rehabber and focus on what's really important. And that's really the current as is value, the actual construction budget, the actual construction cost, and assume a 10% contingency in that. And call on the most knowledgeable local broker to help you zero in on really what is the as repaired value of similar properties in that neighborhood that are renovated to a similar level of finish. Because you know, dickering over loan fees and rates, just a waste of your time, waste of the lender's time, and it's really a waste of the rehabber's time.
Well, and most of these loans are really short-term loans. So really, what the hell difference does the rate?
Exactly.
Yeah, for for
You know, the
6
money's
months.
out 9 months, maybe
Yeah,
Right.
maybe.
6 months typically.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I gotta hop off. Thanks so much for having me. And
Thank you for joining us. Thank you,
yeah,
Jill, for joining
appreciate it.
us.
Have a great
So,
day.
Jill, do you
Thank you
find
too.
that presentations like this are valuable?
Oh, for sure. Always. Yeah.
Okay, well, we just
you
learned
have-
from you guys more than anything, so thank you.
You haven't shortchanged me yet. Thanks
It's
so much.
you, kiddo. We'll get together soon for lunch.
please. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
take care. Bye.
And-
And,
Any other questions?
I have a question.
sure.
What does the process look like, Mark and Eric, for, let's say I've identified a property, I want to present it to my flipper. What is my process with you? What do I have to do to satisfy you in my role as the realtor? And, how fast do I need to get information to you? How fast does my client need to get information to you to get the loan approved so that they can make their offer without, and have their financing in place?
Yeah, so that's pretty, so there's two-step process there. I think the first step is a lot of times they'll request a pre-approval letter from a buyer, even if, and if it's a rehabber, they're gonna wanna see a pre-approval as well to let them know that they have financing on the table. You'd send over an email to Mark or I, just with the general property address, what you believe you're gonna be making an offer at, or the rehabber's gonna be making an offer at, and a little preliminary information on the extent of the rehab work and as completed value. And we're not going to go into any specifics or details at that point. That's just going to allow you to make the offer. We'll issue a pre-approval letter based upon that information, which is typically going to be up to about 80% of the acquisition costs and 100% of rehab costs. That's what it's going to state in that pre-approval letter, which then you can provide to the rehabber, and they'll be able to rely upon that when making their offer. Because so long as there's been no misrepresentations to us at any stage of the process, really relating to the property itself as it now stands, or the as completed value, and no real red flags come up, i.e. the borrower is found to be there's a lawsuit against him or has filed bankruptcy, things are going to be able to move on. The commitment letter that's going to be issued is going to be issued after an offer has been accepted. So when an offer is accepted, you're going to send that over to me or Mark, and we'll prepare a commitment letter to you, to the rehabber, that's going to lay out all the conditions that are needed to be satisfied, the loan amount, the term, everything that a commitment letter from a bank really would have. The important thing is going to be the conditions, and in those conditions is going to be verification of the value of the property in its as completed state, and a number of other ones that are pretty standard with regards to the buyer being able to satisfy the debt. We also lay out all of our costs in there, very transparent. We don't want to ever get to a closing table and have a borrower say, well, there's another $2,500 to $3,500 worth of closing costs here. Where'd that come from? We basically lay out all of our costs right in the commitment letter so they can see that, and it's very transparent. So just in summary, it goes from a pre-approval letter, offer gets accepted, it comes back to us we give a commitment letter out. At that point, we'd also like a CMA from you guys showing properties that match what the as completed estimated value is on this particular property. That allows us to kind of have a basis to do our own underwriting and due diligence too.
So I have a question with regard to that. Can that be accomplished prior to signing a PNS, which is when anybody would have to put serious money that may not be refundable down?
Yeah, so it can be, so that's a difficult answer to give. It's difficult to give a definitive answer on, because a lot of times these properties, the buyers need to move quickly. So it's not always a very extended signing date for the PNS, right? You can put an offer down and have to sign the PNS within 3 to 5 business days, or maybe even a week. And really the way we're going to do it is we're going to issue that commitment letter. Just to the volume of deals, it becomes very difficult to underwrite and due diligence before a purchase sale agreement is signed, because there just isn't enough time to do all of that. And you don't know if the deal is really live until that purchase sale agreement is signed. So for us to do a lot of the due diligence and underwriting to be able to guarantee that this is a loan is from a bandwidth perspective nearly impossible. That's why it's critical that what's being represented to us at the time the commitment letter is issued is going to be fairly accurate to what we find out during our due diligence and underwriting. And if everything is accurate or close to being accurate, there's going to be no reason why we wouldn't do the loan. It's when someone says that the property is going to be worth 500. Mark and I take a look at it, it's only going to be worth 400. Now you've got a problem on your hands that could put your deposit at risk, but that's not really a problem of ours. That was something that we would rely upon the borrower and the broker and rehabber to kind of have a fairly good idea of what their property is going to be valued at the end of that flip.
So do you recommend including a mortgage contingency, which may be problematic for these guys?
Well, I think we all know how that works, right? I mean, a lot of times that's going to get in the way of them getting an offer accepted.
Yep.
But again, I haven't, when getting a email, even a summary, a summary of the transaction, if there's compliance with the lending parameters, and a borrower and a broker are going to be able to identify whether they're going to be able to hit those standards or meet those requirements, and there's nothing going to be found in our due diligence that's going to say this is the opposite of what was represented to us, you basically know that the deal's going to happen, because I'm not going to, nor is Mark, and Mass Private Lending is not going to commit to even issue a commitment letter at the beginning unless we know that we have funds to close on that loan. So we'll have the funds, we'll know we'll be able to close. However, if there was some sort of misrepresentation along the way, that's going to get in the way of the closing. And that's not something that we would feel is, that the onus is on the borrower to make the right representations. As long as they do that, meets the lending parameters, if that commitment letter comes over, there's not too much to worry about.
So that really means in practical terms that the onus is on us to give them proper advice, to do our homework, and to be a true consultant.
Yes,
And
it is. To a certain degree, you're 100% correct. The rehabber is going to be able to identify the rehab costs a little bit better. And
Right.
rehab costs are going to be different for each deal. If a person's in the trades, they're going to get a whole different a budget put together than someone that's coming in outside and hiring third parties to do things. So that's going to be so. And on top of that, the borrower is going to be representing to you whether they have any lawsuits against them, bankruptcies, financial problems.
you
Your
do
job is really
a
going to be
credit
to focus
report
on
on
the
that?
value.
You do run a credit report.
No, we do not always run a credit report. Absolutely not. We will oftentimes in our additional conditions say it's subject to lender's verification of financials. That's a very broad term, and it's intentionally broad because it allows us the leeway to make decisions based upon our concerns. And oftentimes a credit report is not run, but we reserve the right to do so with that additional condition should we be concerned.
Got
Okay,
it. Any other questions for these two gentlemen? Well then,
we thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much
attending.
for
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.